Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The sun had just begun its slow descent, casting long shadows across the spacious bedroom. Its golden rays illuminated the intricate patterns on the silk dresses hanging gracefully from ornate wooden hangers. The dresses, in hues of ruby red and emerald green, shimmered in the light, their delicate fabric exuding an air of elegance and mystery. Elijah, it's time. The deep voice of Elijah's father echoed through the room, infusing the quiet afternoon with an air of anticipation.
I know, Dad. I'm almost ready.
Elijah's reply was steady, but a hint of nervousness laced his words as he carefully adjusted the sleeves of the ruby-red silk dress he now wore. He stepped back, regarding his reflection in the full-length mirror with a critical eye. The dress fit him perfectly, its low-cut neckline accentuating his collarbones and the subtle curves he had developed over months of careful hormone treatments. His once short hair now fell in loose curls past his shoulders, framing his face in a way that accentuated his high cheekbones. You look... Elijah's father paused, a mix of emotions flitting across his rugged features. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. A soft smile played on Elijah's lips as he turned to face his father.
Really? You think so?
The older man nodded, a hint of moisture gathering in his eyes.
I do, son. I mean, daughter.
He corrected himself, his voice catching slightly as the weight of their secret hung heavy in the air between them. Eliana took a steadying breath, the scent of her father's cologne mingling with the aroma of fresh laundry and perfume. It's a big step, I know, but I feel like this is who I am, who I've always been meant to be. She paused, searching her father's eyes for any hint of disapproval.
And I want the world to see me as I truly am.
Her father crossed the room in 3 long strides and pulled her into a tight embrace, resting his chin on the top of her head. I know, Eliana, and I support you, no matter what. I just worry about how others might react. The world can be cruel, and I don't want anyone to hurt my little girl. Eliana closed her eyes, savoring the feeling of her father's strong arms around her. I know, Dad, but I have you, and that gives me the strength to face anything. She pulled back, her eyes sparkling with unshed tears. Besides, I have to start living my truth at some point, right? That you do. Her father's voice was thick with emotion as he released her from the embrace. Now, we should probably get going. Your mother will have our heads if we're late for dinner. Right. Eliana turned back to the mirror, smoothing non-existent wrinkles from her dress. Let's do this. The dinner bell tolled as Elijah now transformed into Eliana, and her father descended the grand staircase that dominated the foyer of their ancestral home. The sound of muted conversation and the clinking of crystal and silverware drifted up to greet them.
Nervous?
Her father asked, placing a supportive hand on her lower back as they reached the bottom step. A little. Eliana drew in a steadying breath, acutely aware of the swish of her dress with each step she took. But I think it'll be okay. Mom seems to have pulled out all the stops, so everyone will be too busy admiring the setup to pay much attention to me. As they stepped into the dining room, the lively hum of conversation paused momentarily as the gathered guests took note of their entrance. A crackling fire in the grand fireplace provided a warm glow, casting dancing shadows across the faces of the assembled family members. Eliana's heart pounded in her chest as she scanned the room, searching for any sign of disapproval or recognition in the eyes of her aunts, uncles, and cousins. There's my girl! Eliana's mother, a tall and elegant woman with silver-streaked dark hair, emerged from the group, a brilliant smile on her face. She air-kissed Eliana's father, and then turned to Eliana. her eyes sparkling with pride and affection. "Oh, honey, you look absolutely radiant. That color suits you perfectly." Eliana felt a rush of relief at her mother's warm welcome. "Thanks, Mom. You know I love your taste in clothes." "Nonsense, dear. You have an eye for fashion all your own." Her mother's eyes darted briefly to Eliana's father, a silent communication passing between them before she turned back to her daughter. "Now, everyone is eager to see you. Go on, join your cousins and catch up while we get dinner ready." As Eliana made her way over to where her cousins were gathered, she felt the weight of their stares. She kept her head held high, a slight smile playing on her lips as she intercepted whispered snippets of their conversation. "Did you see her dress? She looks so different, I barely recognized her." "Shh, keep it down." Eliana's heart hammered in her chest as she reached the group, forcing a relaxed smile as she greeted them. "Hey, everyone!" The cousins fell silent for a moment before one of them, a young woman named Sarah, stepped forward, offering a hesitant smile. "Wow, Elijah! Or Eliana, I mean, that dress is gorgeous! You look amazing!" Eliana's smile widened, feeling a surge of gratitude for her cousin's acceptance. "Thanks, Sarah. That means a lot, especially coming from a fashionista like you." Sarah laughed, the tension in the group seeming to dissipate with the sound. "You know it. I'm just glad someone in the family has the guts to rock a dress like that. I'd look like a total clown." "Oh, stop it." Eliana playfully rolled her eyes as the group began to relax, the conversation turning to safer topics like the weather and their shared love of cooking. Dinner that night was a lavish affair, with multiple courses and fine wine flowing freely. Eliana held her own in the lively discussions, feeling more comfortable by the minute as her family accepted her without question. As the dessert course was served, Eliana's mother raised her glass, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'd like to propose a toast to family, to love, and to acceptance. May we always cherish and support one another, no matter what life brings. To family, love, and acceptance." The words were repeated by the gathering, glasses clinking in unison. Eliana met her father's eyes across the table, seeing the same pride and emotion reflected there that she felt. She knew that this was just the beginning of her journey, but surrounded by the love and support of her family, she felt ready to take on the world. The gentle glow of sunrise filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a soft light across the bedroom. Eliana stirred, the events of the previous night playing through her mind like a treasured memory. She turned her head, spotting the ruby-red dress hanging neatly on its wooden hanger, a silent witness to the transformation that had taken place the day before. With a contented sigh, she snuggled deeper into the plush comforter, her eyes drifting closed once more. Sleep pulled at her, offering a respite from the questions and decisions that lay ahead. She knew that this was just the beginning, that there would be challenges and obstacles to face as she continued on her path. But, in that moment, wrapped in the warm afterglow of her family's acceptance, she allowed herself to simply enjoy the peace and calm of the present. The soft rustle of her father's newspaper broke the morning silence, announcing his presence in the room without a word. He often liked to sit with his coffee, quietly reading while Eliana slept in on weekend mornings. She smiled, keeping her eyes closed, and snuggled deeper into the pillow. "Good morning, sleeping beauty." Her father's voice rumbled with good-natured humor, the nickname he had given her since she was a little girl. Good morning." Eliana stretched, her eyes fluttering open. She yawned and sat up, the events of the previous night flooding back. "How are you feeling today, Dad?" Her father folded the newspaper and placed it on the bedside table, his eyes warm and understanding. relieved, happy. I felt like I could finally breathe last night, seeing you so
Comfortable in your own skin.
He paused, his brow creasing with a hint of concern.
How about you? Any regrets?
Eliana considered the question for a moment, her eyes drifting to the red dress hanging in her closet. No. She shook her head firmly. It was like coming home, like I had been playing a part all these years, and finally, I could just be myself. Her father nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm glad, honey. Truly glad. Your mother and I. We just want you to be happy and true to yourself. There was a soft knock on the door before it cracked open, and Eliana's mother poked her head into the room. Morning, dearies. Sleep well, Eliana? Eliana smiled. Like a log, Mom. Good, good. Her mother entered, carrying a tray laden with a pot of tea, cups, and a plate of freshly baked scones. Thought we could have a little breakfast in bed while we catch up. It's been a while since we've had a proper chat. Just us girls. Eliana grinned and scooted over in the bed, making room for her mother to settle in beside her. That sounds lovely, Mom. She shot a conspiratorial glance at her father, who pretended to look put out as he stood and took his leave of the room. As Eliana and her mother sipped their tea and munched on scones, they chatted easily, covering everything from fashion and makeup to Eliana's plans for the future. You know, dear, her mother said as she dabbed at her mouth with a napkin, your father and I have been thinking. We want to support you in whatever way we can. If that means helping you explore this side of yourself further, or even transitioning fully, we're behind you 100%. Eliana's eyes widened, and she set her cup down carefully in its saucer. Really, Mom? You and Dad are okay with all of this? Her mother nodded, her eyes filled with love and determination. Of course we are. It hasn't been easy watching you struggle to find yourself, but we want you to know that we're here for you, no matter what. Eliana felt a rush of emotion as she leaned over to embrace her mother. Thank you, Mom. That means more to me than I can say. She pulled back, her eyes sparkling with unshed tears. I love you both so much. Her mother returned the embrace, her eyes misting over as well. We love you too, sweetheart. Now, enough of this mush. She pretended to wipe tears from her eyes, her playful tone returning. Let's get you dressed and down to breakfast before your father eats all the bacon. Eliana laughed, feeling lighter than she had in ages as she rose from the bed. Deal. I could use some sustenance after all that emotion. The house was alive with the smells of breakfast as Eliana made her way downstairs, still savoring the comfort of her mother's acceptance and support. Ah, there she is! Her father's hearty voice rang out as Eliana entered the spacious kitchen. He rose from the table where he had been perusing the morning paper and enveloped her in a bear hug. How's my favorite girl this fine morning? Eliana hugged him back, savoring the moment. I'm fantastic, Dad! Truly fantastic! She pulled away, flashing him a bright smile. And ravenous. What smells so good? Her mother, bustling at the stove, laughed. Your father's been cooking up a storm, that's what. We have bacon, eggs, pancakes, and fresh fruit. Take your pick. Eliana's stomach rumbled in response to the mouth-watering offerings. Everything, please. She grinned as she took a seat at the table, pouring herself a cup of coffee from the pot her father had just refilled. So, Dad, what are your plans for the day? Golf? Poker with the boys? Her father chuckled as he piled food onto a plate and passed it over. Nothing so exciting, I'm afraid. Just a few errands and then a spot of fishing this afternoon. Care to join me? Eliana took the proffered plate with a murmur of thanks. I'd love to, Dad. It's been too long since we've gone fishing together. She took a bite of fluffy pancake, savoring the burst of maple syrup on her tongue before continuing. I think I might do a little shopping with Mom first, though. She's promised to take me to that new boutique in town. Her father grunted, reaching for the bottle of syrup. Ah, be careful with that place. Last time your mother went there, I had to take out a second mortgage on the house. Eliana and her mother laughed in unison, a comfortable domestic scene playing out as they enjoyed their breakfast together. As they stepped out of the car, Eliana couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement. The boutique her mother had mentioned was located in a charming storefront on the town's main street, its window display an artful arrangement of mannequins dressed in the latest fashions. "Oh, this looks adorable!" Eliana exclaimed, her eyes lighting up as she took in the tasteful decor. Her mother smiled, placing a hand on her arm. "I knew you'd like it. Come on, let's see what they have." The bell above the door tinkled as they entered, the soft chiming a soothing melody that invited them to browse. A stylishly dressed sales associate looked up from where she had been straightening a rack of blouses, offering a warm smile. "Good morning. How can I help you ladies today?" Eliana's mother stepped forward, linking her arm through Eliana's. "My daughter here is looking for something special. It's her first time shopping for herself, so we want to make it memorable." The sales associate's eyes sparkled with understanding. "How exciting! We have some lovely new arrivals that just came in. This way, please." She led them further into the boutique, gesturing to a row of stylish dresses. "I think we might have exactly what you're looking for." Eliana's breath caught in her throat as she took in the array of elegant gowns and playful sundresses. Her fingers itched to touch the soft fabrics, to feel the weight of the garments in her hands. "Oh, they're beautiful." Her voice was little more than a whisper as she trailed her fingers along the sleeve of a sky blue dress adorned with delicate lace. The sales associate beamed. "Go ahead and try a few on. Our dressing rooms are right over here." Eliana felt her mother's gentle nudge and made her way to the indicated curtained-off area, her heart pounding with anticipation. She emerged a short while later, the sky blue dress accentuating her figure beautifully. Her mother's eyes widened. "Oh, sweetie, it's stunning! Turn around, let me see!" Eliana obliged, turning this way and that as she admired her reflection in the full-length mirror. The sales associate appeared with a delicate silver necklace, fastening it around Eliana's neck to complete the look. "It's perfect," Eliana's mother pronounced, her eyes shining with pride and affection. "We'll take it." As they left the boutique, arms laden with shopping bags, Eliana felt a sense of satisfaction and contentment wash over her. Turning to her mother, she felt an overwhelming rush of gratitude. "Thank you, Mom, for everything!" Her mother smiled, her eyes warm and understanding. "You're very welcome, honey. It's my absolute pleasure." Their conversation turned to the upcoming week, planning meals and coordinating schedules as they strolled back to the car. "Oh, and I almost forgot!" Her mother reached into her purse, pulling out a small velvet box. "Your father and I wanted to give you something, a little token of our love and support." Eliana's eyes widened as she took the box, a mixture of curiosity and anticipation fluttering in her chest. She lifted the lid, revealing a delicate silver bracelet adorned with a rainbow-hued charm. "Oh, Mom, Dad," she trailed off, touched beyond words as she carefully lifted the bracelet from its resting place. "It has your birthstone, and the charm is a symbol of pride and inclusivity," her mother explained, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "We want you to know that we see you, all of you, and we love you unconditionally." Eliana's vision blurred as she carefully fastened the bracelet around her wrist, the cool metal a comforting weight against her skin. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I love you both so much." Her mother pulled her into a tight embrace, the shopping bags momentarily forgotten. "We love you too, sweetheart. Always remember that." As they pulled up the long driveway to their home, Eliana couldn't shake the feeling of warmth and contentment that had followed her since that morning's shopping excursion. Her father, who had been puttering in the garden, straightened up at the sound of their car and waved, a wide grin splitting his face. "Well, look who it is! How was the shopping trip, ladies?" Eliana climbed out of the passenger seat, a smile stretching across her face as she approached her father, carrying the assortment of bags. "It was wonderful, Dad. Just what I needed." "Oh, I bet," her father teased, taking in the collection of shopping bags. "Looks like you bought out the whole store." The teasing continued as Eliana showed her father the new dress and accessories they had picked out, his eyes crinkling with pride as he admired how happy and confident she looked. After a few more jokes about the size of the haul, he ushered them inside to rest their feet before dinner. As evening fell, the family gathered in the cozy living room, firelight flickering and casting dancing shadows along the walls. Eliana curled up in an overstuffed armchair, absently fiddling with the charm on her new bracelet as she listened to her parents recount stories from their youth. "And then your father thought it would be a brilliant idea to jump off the roof into the pool." Her mother's musical laughter filled the room as she shot her husband a playful look. Needless to say, it did not end well. Her father chuckled, shaking his head ruefully. "What can I say? I was young and foolish back then, though I seem to recall you egging me on, my dear." "Me?" Her mother feigned innocence, placing a hand over her heart. "Never. I was a perfect angel." Eliana giggled at their gentle back and forth, feeling a sense of peace and contentment settle over her. These were the moments she would cherish, simple family times filled with laughter and love. As the fire burned low and stifled yawns began to punctuate the conversation, her father rose to his feet with a sigh. "Well, I don't know about you two, but I'm off to bed. Big day on the lake tomorrow." He bent to press a kiss to the top of his wife's head before turning to Eliana. "You still joining your old man for a bit of fishing, kiddo?" Eliana nodded, a thrill of anticipation rippling through her. "You know it, Dad. Wouldn't miss it for the world." Her mother rose as well, gathering the empty mugs and plates to carry them into the kitchen. "Then you'd both better get some rest. I'll see you bright and early for breakfast." With a chorus of good nights, the family dispersed, each lost in their own thoughts as they prepared for the new day ahead. Eliana paused in her bedroom doorway, taking a moment to simply breathe and soak in the feeling of unconditional love and acceptance that enveloped her. She was home. Truly, deeply home. The first pale rays of dawn were just beginning to creep over the horizon when Eliana's eyes fluttered open the next morning. A quick glance at the clock confirmed it was still early, but she felt rested and energized, eager to start the day. Dressing quickly in comfortable jeans and a flannel shirt, she made her way downstairs, her steps quiet so as not to disturb the stillness of the household. The tantalizing aroma of freshly brewed coffee greeted her in the kitchen, and she couldn't help but smile at the sight of her father already seated at the table, nursing a steaming mug. "Morning, Dad," she murmured, pressing a kiss to his grizzled cheek before moving to pour herself a cup of the rich, inviting brew. "Eliana." Her father's voice was hushed, but warm with affection. "You're up earlier than I expected. Couldn't sleep?" She shook her head, cradling the ceramic mug between her palms and letting the heat seep into her hands. "No, I slept great, actually. I'm just excited, I guess." A small, almost shy smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. It's been too long since we've had some quality father-daughter time. A look of understanding flickered in her father's eyes, swiftly followed by a matching grin. You got that right, kiddo. It'll be good to get out on the water, just the two of us. He rose, stretching with a soft groan before collecting his mug and gesturing towards the back door. What do you say we head out? Give your old man a chance to show you how it's done before your mother wakes up and tries to join us. Eliana laughed, dimples winking as she followed him outside into the crisp morning air.
You're on, Dad. Just try to keep up.
The short walk to the lake was made in companionable silence, save for the occasional call of an early bird or the crunch of their boots on the dew-dampened path. As the small rowboat came into view, bobbing gently at its mooring, Eliana felt a surge of nostalgia and excitement. After you, milady. Her father gestured gallantly for her to step into the boat first, before following and expertly casting off the lines. Settling onto the wooden bench, Eliana let her fingers trail through the cool water as her father took up the oars and began rowing them out towards the center of the glassy lake. The rising sun had set the surface ablaze in a kaleidoscope of pinks and oranges, the vibrant hues reflecting off the gently lapping waves. Isn't this perfect? She breathed, drinking in the peaceful scene surrounding them. I'd almost forgotten how beautiful it is out here. Her father hummed in agreement, setting the oars aside once they had reached his favored fishing spot.
There's nothing quite like it. Watching the day begin, the world holding its breath before bursting into life. He trailed off, already absorbed in the ritual of baiting their lines and casting out into the shimmering depths. Time seemed to slow, the tranquil quiet broken only by the occasional plop of a lure hitting the water or the creak of the boat rocking beneath them. Eliana found herself lulled into a sense of calm, her worries and doubts drifting away as she focused on the simple act of fishing with her father. So,
her father spoke up at last, his deep voice barely above a murmur. You seemed pretty happy last night, with the shopping and all. Eliana felt her cheeks warm, but the smile that curved her lips was radiant. I was. It just felt right, you know? Like I was finally being true to myself instead of trying to fit into some predetermined mold. She paused, worrying her bottom lip between her teeth before continuing in a smaller voice.
I know it might not have been easy for you and Mom to accept at first, but I'm so grateful you've been so supportive. Her father was silent for a long moment, his expression contemplative as he studied the taut line gripped between his calloused fingers. When he finally spoke, his words were measured but carried a wealth of emotion. You know, when you were born, all I wanted was for you to be happy and healthy. As you grew up, that want, that hope never changed. It just took on new shapes as you found your way in this world. He lifted his gaze to meet hers, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Watching you struggle these past few years, trying to figure out who you really were, well, it just about broke my heart, kiddo. Eliana felt her own eyes prick with the telltale sting of tears, her throat tightening. But now, her father continued, his voice growing stronger and more assured. Now I see that light in your eyes again, that spark of pure joy that I remembered from when you were just a little girl, carefree and unafraid to be your most authentic self. He reached out, his large hand engulfing her slender one in a gentle squeeze. And you know what? That's all I've ever wanted for you. To be happy. To be you, without fear or shame or apologies.
If shopping for a few pretty dresses and letting your true colors shine helps make that happen, then you can bet your old man is going to be right here cheering you on every step of the way. The dam broke then, and Eliana found herself blinking back tears in earnest, overwhelmed by the depth of emotion and unconditional love in her father's words. Before she could speak, he had pulled her into a fierce embrace, his flannel shirt soft against her cheek as she returned the hug with every ounce of her being. "I love you, Dad," she managed at last, her voice muffled but fervent. "Thank you for everything." Her father's large hand cradled the back of her head, his usual gruff exterior melting into pure tenderness. "I love you too, sweetheart. Always have. Always will."
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!